Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of day it is, wherever you are right now. Thank you for tuning in to the Conversations with Dr. Don show. The show is produced and broadcast from the Portland, Oregon area. And for your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people, like most of you out there, about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals, and about whatever it is we've decided to talk about tonight. And Pat Finn is my repeat guest, and I always tell him when he's been on, I said, no, you're not going to come back on again, because he always takes off and talks about space forever and ever, and I love space, and pretty soon we're lost talking about rockets and Apollo and that kind of stuff, and the whole hour's gone by. So don't talk too much about it.
Okay.
How are you, Pat?
Good.
But talk about it, or whatever else you want to talk about. How you feeling?
Good.
Yeah. Are you nervous?
No.
Why not?
I've been retired for almost 3 years from work, and
Yes.
I was kind of depressed and a little anxious trying to figure out what I'm going to do for my third act in my life, because I've already done 37 years on the railroad.
37 years in the railroad. My
Yes.
God, you've got some stories, I'll bet. You've told me a few in the gym. We're gym buddies for years and years and years.
There were some unique cast of characters out there.
I'll bet. Oh, we're going to allow some time to talk about the railroad in addition to Apollo and those kinds of things.
We can.
Yeah. And you're not nervous, though?
No.
What's wrong with you? I'm the only one nervous.
I don't know. You reach a point where you pretty much have done all your goals and you're comfortable with who you are. And I've learned to relax. I've learned to let go.
You don't got a bucket list anymore?
I have a few things I still want to do.
Like what?
Well, I want to go to Europe. I want to go to Auschwitz because I have to see it for myself.
Yeah.
I want to go to Normandy. I want to walk through where the D-Day was.
I want to go with you. Let me know. We'll go together.
All right. I'd like to chase Patton's run through Europe.
Oh, he was a hero of mine.
He was mine, too. He was one of the last of the truly great generals, and he was on the front lines all the time.
Yes. His pearl handle, his pistols weren't pearl handle, were they? Ivory?
Ivory.
Yeah. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Okay. Now, when and where were you born, Pat?
I was born in Portland, Oregon, May 12, 1955.
And how many times have you been on the show through the years now? 7 or 8 times?
This is five.
5. I still have you back on again because people like you. Yeah. And Portland, Oregon. And why were you born? I asked you that before. You never answered me before.
Why was I born?
Yes.
I think my parents had makeup sex after fighting.
This is the family show.
All right. So anyhow, that's why I was born. I was born to 2 people that really loved each other and met during World War II, one in the Navy, one in the Red Cross. And they met by accident because the priest got the 2 Tom Finns mixed up, and my dad was in the Pacific. He started getting these letters from my mom. Never met her. They wrote to each other for 18 months. He comes home from leave after the Battle of Leyte Gulf, and then he went across the country, and it was hard to do back then during World War II, on a troop train. He met my mom, and they were engaged 8 hours later. And then after the war, he got discharged. He went back to Michigan, picked her up, brought her out here.
Uh-huh.
And they were married for 54 years.
My gosh. Where are they now?
Well, my dad checked out in 2002. My mom's 90 years old. I just saw her yesterday.
Yes, you told me you saw her yesterday.
Yeah. Every Sunday I go over, we have dinner together, watch 60 Minutes. I cook for her, and then, do a little yard work or whatever she needs. She's suffering from a little arthritis, but she still gets around, so has a sense of humor, and her brain is still really sharp.
And she still puts up with you.
Yeah, she still puts up with me, and she's still mad at me for stuff I did in 1967. Lets me know occasionally.
Brothers and sisters?
I'm down to 2 sisters. I've lost 2 sisters, one to lymphoma, one to breast cancer, and then I have one sister who lives in Arizona who really likes me, and then my sister who lives about 3.5 miles from me doesn't really appreciate myself, and I haven't seen her since 2002.
What does she like about you?
She doesn't like a lot of things.
No, we don't have 3 hours.
No, she just disowned my sister Sheila and myself.
Yeah.
So it's all right.
It's hard to figure, isn't it?
everybody has one in the family. She went to the dark side of her personality, which is okay, you know.
I thought you occupied that spot.
Now I actually at the weird side of the personality.
You did for sure, in spades.
Yes, I'm a big space cadet.
Yeah. That's interesting. Your stories you have about being a space cadet are just delightful. And I can hang with you because I never went that far, but I've gone quite a bit because I worked on those programs for years and years and years.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize Don worked on the Atlas missile, our first ICBM.
Yeah, and I've got scars from cutting my hands, picking up debris from launches that failed at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. You know, don't get me started, see, I'll compete with you about stories.
All right.
All right. And, are you German? You're not Irish, are you?
I'm Irish and German.
Both.
Yeah.
See, I remember some of that.
I have the best sides and also the worst sides of that. I mean, I'm lighthearted, got the humor, but if I get crossed, you know, I do have the German temper occasionally.
Do you sing any Irish songs?
No.
What's wrong with you? Matt Monroe, I've talked to you about Matt Monroe.
No, but, you know, I sing other things like Jerry Garcia, Grateful Dead, you know, Bob Dylan. I'm not going to sing now, but...
Why not?
No, you have the singing voice in this room.
The religious preference, you got one of those nowadays?
Well, I believe in God or something, but I don't appreciate organized religion because I like the message they did, but I used to go to the Foursquare Church, and when Ron Mills passed away here about 10 years ago, he had about a 23-year battle with leukemia.
23 years.
Yeah, I didn't really appreciate the new guy, and basically organized religion is kind of like they have their own franchise, like Kentucky Fried Chicken. And you know, it's all about taking your money from you and putting it in the basket.
Well, some people need religion. What's wrong with you? Don't you need religion?
I've seen too many predators out there that there's a certain pastor in Bend that took advantage of my sister's husband's mom, and she had a little bit of wealth, and he was always going around and asking for donations. She gave donations, and when she had her stroke and she went into a convalescent home, he never visited her once. The people from the congregation never visited her because, you know, she was kind of like the prey and he was the predator. And
Elmer Gantry?
Yeah, he preys on people who are trying to buy their way into heaven, so to speak.
P-R-E-Y instead of just P-R-A-Y, right?
Yeah.
Son of a gun. And so you believe in God, and what were you always a religious kid?
Well, I grew up in an Irish Catholic family,
Figures,
and we
yeah.
went to St. Anthony. I went to St. Anthony's for a couple of years, and I never totally believed their version of it. I know there's something out there, but you know, they're all trying to sell something, and it seemed like very repressive to me. Almost like the Dark Ages.
You're not
The nuns were pretty mean. They could actually, back then in the 60s, they could actually hit you.
I remember.
Yeah, I had to put my hands out a couple of times, and I got whacked by the ruler.
Well, those poor women were frustrated, my God.
Well, yes.
The priests were able to have some, no, never mind, I don't want to go there.
Yes, priests. You know, that's why some of them been deflocked.
Yeah. Oh, talk a little about your education, and not those centuries you worked on the railroad. Your formal education. Where'd you go to school?
Well, I went to Charles F. Taggart after St. Anthony's, and then I went to Tualatin Junior High and then Taggart High.
It was all in Oregon.
Yeah, PCC, went down to Oregon State for a little bit, but I never graduated.
Mm-hmm.
I ran out of money and ambition and needed a job. My dad always told me that when your stomach meets your backbone, you get motivated. And I always wanted to work for the railroad anyway, since I was a little kid.
Since you were a little kid, huh?
Well, I think what happened was my grandparents lived by the entrance of the Brooklyn train yard for Southern Pacific. Both my parents worked, and when I heard the train go by, I used to run out to this big, huge cherry tree, and I used to watch trains go on. And back then they had the Coast Starlight and the Daylight and the Lark, and I always said one day I'm going to be on those. And I started out laying steel for 2 summers, and then went to work for the Burlington Northern.
Laying steel, what does that mean?
I was a gandy dancer. You actually take the old steel off, and we were putting ribbon row on, which is a 1/4 mile long. because the old segmented rail was only 25 feet long.
But you started working on the ground like that.
Yeah, I worked my way up.
Worked your way up through the years.
Yeah.
Tell me again for the 15th time, how many years?
I worked for the Burlington Arts and then became the Burlington Arts Santa Fe 37 years.
37 years. Did they force you out?
No, I already knew that I was going to retire at a certain time. My dad always told me to get out at 62. And I was going to work till 61, but when I turned 60, you know, a lot of the fun was taken out of it, and I was starting to age, and I couldn't move as fast as I wanted to, because instead of working the road a lot, I worked inside the yard, where we'd get on and off moving equipment and switch the trains out. And it was just time to go. My body was telling me, my back hurt all the time, I had a headache. I didn't really appreciate one of my fellow coworkers that was on my job, and it was just time to go.
Yeah.
I did my time. I did 37 years, and I have a guaranteed retirement, and life's pretty good. I paid my dues.
You still got a pension?
I have a traditional pension plus the 401k, which I can't tap into until I'm 67.
I'm going to call Trump and see if we can do something about your pension. You
got you know, Congressman Paul Ryan tried to absorb railroad retirement, which is privately funded. It doesn't cost the taxpayers any money.
Right.
But he tried to absorb it here about 9 years ago into Social Security to shore up the numbers, because we keep stealing more money from Social Security, and eventually it's going to run out of money.
Why don't you run for the Senate or something? Because you'd be a good spokesman for people like us.
I can't lie like some of those people do.
No, they're all honest.
You know, unfortunately, if you're really honest, people on Fox News take advantage of you, because, you know, Fox News is kind of like where professional wrestling meets porn. It looks real, it sounds real, but it's not real. Got a little bling to it, though. You know? I'm too honest, and I mean, I don't have to get on Twitter and badmouth somebody behind their face. If I'm going to be mad at somebody or tell them the truth, I look them straight in the eye. That was the way I was taught.
How'd you get to think the way that you do? You're strange, you know that?
Well, my parents were pretty honest. They were never prejudiced, and all my experiences, I had two sisters that were older that were handicapped. One had cerebral palsy and one was blind.
Oh, really?
And then some of the laws that we have now, if my parents got together with Edith Green, she was a congresswoman, Wendell Wyatt, and at that time, Mark Hatfield was the governor of Oregon. They got some bills passed. And I saw people make fun of my sisters because one couldn't walk very well, she had cerebral palsy, and the other one had to, you know, she had to put her hand on my arm. We'd go out, and they'd throw rocks and stuff, so I'd get in a fight, and I'd learn how to box early, so I'd just beat them up. And I'd learned that you should accept people the way they are. Don't try to make them who you want them to be. Yeah. You know, don't prejudge.
Where are they today?
Unfortunately, those two people are no longer on the planet.
Yes. But you had some experiences during that period when they were on the planet.
Yeah, and I learned how to see life through their eyes, you know, the difficulties they had. Because every day for my sister Rose, it was like going to the Olympics. Every day was a 15-round title fight for her to get up out of bed. Sometimes her legs weren't working to crawl. She never missed one day at work in the 35 years she worked up on the hill where people learn how to walk, excuse me. So yeah, she was tough as nails.
So you have a soft spot in your heart.
Yeah,
for handicapped, huh?
Yeah, I always have a soft spot for old people, little people who are handicapped. In fact, the other day, my mom and we went down to Safeway. If you ever go to Safeway at King City, on the first Tuesday of the month, it's Senior Citizen Day. You see a lot of old people. They still don't want to give up their license. They're still very proud. They don't want to give up their independence. I watch my mom struggle, but she's still there, you know, so you help them out. And it's sad to see somebody, you know, who's been so full of life as we age, we do deteriorate.
How old is she now?
She's 90.
Yeah, you told me, yeah.
She still drives. In fact, tomorrow she's going to drive down to the cabin. She's got a cabin out on the Wilson River.
Yeah.
So.
Anybody ever comment about your handicap?
I mean, mentally? Or my lack of stature and height? I had one train master tell me once that I wasn't the sharpest tool in the tool shed.
How'd did you get to think the way that you do, to be fascinated with trains and that's moved into a fascination with rockets and space flight and those kinds of things? You're a walking encyclopedia of that kind of. Elon Musk is your hero nowadays, huh?
Well, I think he's the new Howard Hughes of our era. He's way ahead of everybody else. You know, he's a visionary. I mean, if Nixon would not have killed the Saturn V, we would have already been on Mars, because we were working on the 2 solid rocket boosters that were on the shuttle. We were going to put 4 around the Saturn V, have 10 million pounds of thrust, and for the shielding of the radiation, they were going to build modules like the third stage of the Saturn V, and they were going to live in that. And we also had, we were working on a project called Project Nerva. It was an atomic-powered upper stage.
What year was this?
This was back in the 60s.
Yeah,
We were supposed to have a
then.
base in Mars by 1981. 1981. We were going for it.
And what happened? What happened? How come we stopped?
The war in Vietnam. Nixon killed the Saturn V, and then he gave us the shuttle, which cost overruns. I mean, NASA told them that they wanted a Cadillac, but they got a Chevy, but it was a high maintenance piece of equipment.
Yeah.
And it was like the X-15. Just about every time they flew it, they had to take part of it, some of it apart. And also they were using late 1960 technology. I mean, that's why Edward Musk is able to do what he does now, because, you know, he's building with technology we have today, better welds, better chromatics, electronics. If you ever go down to Launch Complex 5, which I'm sure you've been at, the whole blockhouse, you can fit a little chip on your finger. I mean, that technology is just leapfrogged since then.
And you're still keeping up with it.
Yeah, it's still fascinating. I mean, I don't think we'll get to the moon in my lifetime, but you know, we're still hitching a ride with the Russians.
Is that on your bucket list to go into one of Elon Musk's?
That was the one thing I always wanted to do, was walk on the moon. I want to go to Mars. It takes too long to get there. But you can get to the moon in 2.5 days. Mars, if we would have kept going with Project Nerva, we could have got to Mars in 6 weeks instead of 6 months. Because we were going to get the speeds.
You think we could have?
We could have. We were going to get the speeds up to 100,000 miles an hour instead of 32,000 miles an hour to escape to Earth's atmosphere. I mean, gravitational field.
What's your IQ?
I don't know. It's never really been clocked. I think the older I get, the dumber I get.
It's weird, I know that. I can't figure you out. But yeah, I enjoy challenging my mind to see how it is you think the way that you do. Because your peculiar or unique interests, plus your general impression about the quickness of your mind, I had a fun thing as a psychologist. I would guess after the first 5 minutes with a patient or a client what their IQ is before I'd give the protocols and the tests to verify my guesstimate as their IQ. And I was pretty accurate. But on rare occasions I'd find somebody like you and I just couldn't make an accurate guess. But I couldn't get that low in my guesstimations.
Oh, thanks. I used to tell my supervisors when I show up for work, the expectations need to go down, not up. That way you always achieve all your goals. But like when I was in college, I started studying psychology and went into economics, but I bounced around because I knew I was never going to graduate. Mm-hmm. So I read a bunch of different things. I still do.
Yeah, yeah. And so 37 years, man. You ever had a partner, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, or whatever?
Girlfriend.
I thought, I'm not going to go there.
Yes, I almost got married once. It just didn't work out.
What? Did she learn who you really were and back off or what?
She was extremely brilliant. She was working on her second master's degree. She was going to Marahurst College, excuse me.
Yeah.
And but there was 5 distinct personalities in there. And sometimes I'd come to where we were living. I didn't know which personality I was going to deal with, which was kind of fun, you know. But she had some issues she had to get through with. Her last 2 boyfriends beat her up, and we only got in one argument. But my version of arguing is different because I was on the speech and debate team all through high school and college. So I would debate the issue, and she wasn't used to that, you know.
And she moved on and left you. waiting in the wings. Huh?
Well, she moved on, I moved on, and it's all good.
You have any children? No, we don't want to go there.
No, I've never had any children.
Yeah. Is your political persuasion, are you left or right? Are you a staunch Trump supporter or what?
I'm disappointed with both parties.
Both wings of the same party?
Oh my God, yes. I mean, Trump.
What's the alternative? Are you going to go with Bernie?
Bernie was a little too radical to me. I like Bernie, some of the things he
Why
wanted.
was he too radical? Come on, come on.
If we could have gone back to the election, the only person I really thought that was hitting the issues was Governor Kasich, but he never got any airtime. And then Bernie and Hillary got in that 15-round title fight where they both lost, and we got stuck with Trump. I mean, it's like, I don't understand I don't know if he hypnotized these people, they drink the Kool-Aid, but they just think he's great, and he's just leading this country down the tubes fast.
Is he going to have a second term?
No.
When is he going to disappear?
He's going to disappear after the midterm elections because the way things are going, we're going to be in a massive recession in the middle of his third year of his only term in office. And he'll have nobody to blame but himself, because Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan, and the Republican Party shoved this thing down everybody's throat. And these phony tax cuts that for people like you and I only last for 7 years and they're gone. In corporate America, they went from 32 to 19%. And they're taking all the money and they're putting it back in their stocks.
Well, the wealth need to keep getting wealthier so that they can compete with us and show what free enterprise is about.
Right, and if you squeeze middle class so hard that they can't afford, decent housing, they don't buy cars like every 5 years, they got to keep the old car running, and we get into a tariff war with China, Mexico, and Europe. Food costs are going to go.
It's here, baby. It's here already, isn't it?
Well, we do have tariffs, but we're going to have worse. If Mexico, the president of Mexico has not visited Trump yet. A lot of it has to do with the wall. They buy 30% of their corn from the United States. If they cut that off.
What about the farmers in Mexico?
Well,
they can't grow corn anymore to compete with American imported corn.
Well, they can buy it overseas. Argentina grows a lot of corn, and that's what they're going to do. China buys almost all their soybeans from Middle America. If they cut that off, there's going to be a big thud in Trump country.
So those tariffs are not a good idea.
They're never a good idea. The only people that they hurt are the consumers. People like Trump is going to get a $400,000 a year pension, who's way up here, and it doesn't affect him at all.
Are we ever going to see Trump's tax returns?
No.
Well, why not? This is America. We should be able to use the court system and the Supreme Court to be able to see his tax returns.
Well, it's supposed to be America. I mean, he said an oath for the nation and the entire world that he was going to uphold the Constitution, to kick the Constitution around.
Wow, that's really scary.
It is scary.
I mean, and the method he's using to go about it, coming back from obscure angles. The bottom line is, it'll be a Trump administration, a government, and I don't know if you could call it monopoly capitalism, because the only monopoly that's important is Trump and his immediate cohorts.
Right. I mean, I look at Donald Trump as Captain Hook, and his entire administration is a ship of fools, and Congress is a house of thieves. They got exactly what they want now, and you notice that a lot of them are jumping ship. They're not running for re-election, and Paul Ryan's already said he's on the way out. They're going to leave Mitch McConnell. Poor Mitch, man. When he's no longer head of the Senate, it's going to be hard on his ego.
What's going to happen in the midterms?
Democrats are going to take it back. The mood of the country is going to swing back. It always does. It swings one way, it swings the other. They're going to see that Trump is nothing but a drama queen.
Is he a personality disorder alive on this earth? I think he's a personality disorder. That's why you can't figure what he's going to do or expect. What's for sure is that he will do the unexpected. That's
right.
expected.
I mean, he likes self gratification.
Yeah.
And the drama keeps increasing, because he likes people that, right now they accept it. They accept bad behavior, and he likes people that pay homage to him. He's got surrounded by a bunch of yes men. But you notice that almost 51% of the people that started in his administration has already left. They can't deal with the day-to-day drama anymore.
Yeah. Where did the term denuclearization come from?
I don't know.
Yes.
Him, probably.
Uh-huh.
Which,
I'm going to digress for a second. I'm so unhappy with the mainstream media. I thought I was on board with their deviations, and the tendency to be right-wing and independent is going by the wayside. But I've not seen anything in the media for a long time about other than denuclearization. Nobody talks about why it is that that guy in North Korea, I won't call him a dictator because is behaving the way that he is, because denuclearization should be around the world, not just in North Korea.
and if you ever read any of Bob McNamara's books, like The Fog of War, after the first exchange, all you're doing is moving the rubble around. We have enough weapons. I mean, the United States has more missiles than anybody else. We have more bombers than anybody else.
They don't have enough. They don't have enough. They need more.
Well, I love it when Republicans say, well, we got to build up the military. Build it up to what? It's the biggest military in the world.
Are there any countries left for us to infiltrate and overthrow their governments?
I think we've already done. I mean, we've done it to Iran in 1953. The CIA came in and overthrew their parliament and their prime minister and put the Shah in power because they were afraid Russia was going to come in and steal the oil.
Well, we had to have free enterprise and democracy over there.
Free enterprise for who? Somebody said at work, Mike McGraw said, what are we, industrial slaves? It's just another way of enslaving the masses.
Uh-huh.
And then we all work for the 1.1%.
What are you doing about it?
Well, I've written to my congressman center. I went down on a couple protests, free speech.
Pat, you know that the only answer is revolution.
Well, why not?
The only answer is revolution. The only problem is I don't know what's going to replace the existing monopoly that's going on, this so-called runaway capitalism. That's even hard to talk about, but something's going to happen. Something's going to give within the next, I'm not sure Trump is going to make it through a second term. But things are moving so fast now.
Things are moving fast. And, the United States is no longer the center of the universe. It's shifting to China. President Obama was smart because he knew the Middle East is always going to be a mess. And Israel always gets a free pass because they control Congress and Senate through AIPAC. It's the largest and most powerful lobbyist group in the world. And I think Sharon made a comment here years ago, I don't care who the president is, as long as I own Congress and Senate, I'm okay.
Who is which is the dog and which is the tail? Is Israel the U.S.'s 51st state or what? What's going on there? Listen, they're going to yell at me if we don't take a break because we're on a roll here.
All right.
And then we'll be quiet for a few minutes, then we'll come back and talk about some more stuff.
All right.
And we're going to talk about space stuff some more, okay?
We could.
Break time, please. Hello, we are back again, and Pat and I are running off at the mouth, and the camera should have been on us. And thanks for staying tuned. I know you had a break. I had a break here, talking to Pat again. And for your viewers who missed the opening of the show, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like Pat Finn over here about what's going on in the world nowadays and other things. We're going to be wandering off and talking about all sorts of other stuff because he has so many things to talk about and he's dangerous. His mind is so active and so alert. You still nervous?
No.
You never were nervous. I am. How you doing now, okay?
Good. I'm having fun.
So I know you are. You always have fun.
Well, you should always have fun. I mean, I enjoyed my job for 37 years. I had fun except for the last couple of days.
Tell us some stories, one or two stories about your job. I think these movies I see about train wrecks and all kind of stuff. And
well, you do have a few. And when you have a bad day there, it's very expensive. You know, it takes a lot of energy, like a big crane, to come out and put the car back on the track.
Like toys, huh?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of kinetic energy there because those trains are running at 60 miles an hour. And when if you have to make a stop, and the engineer has a couple options of how to stop the train, whether you use the air brake or dynamic braking, by the time you make a decision on to make your first brake application, to the time you stop, you use up a mile of real estate. When the trains, when we don't stop, we go through things. I've unfortunately have had that happen.
I'm afraid to ask you any questions about trains nowadays because it seems trains in America are ancient and really outdated big time compared to what's going on in Asia and bullet trains and that kind of stuff in other parts of the world. So are you up to what's going on in the world in trains?
Well, yeah, I mean, I still follow the industry because it was my love. Our stuff, our diesel electric engines that are made right now are very up to date. In fact, in 10 years from now, there may not be anybody on the trains.
But they can't go 60 and 80 miles an hour anyway.
Why not? They do other places. What they're going to have to do is close off the main line. Because I was involved in 5 different incidents where I hit somebody, and it was because they were on the track when we were there. I mean,
crashed the train?
No, we went through cars. And then about a mile later, you stop, and then it's a really bad day. It just tears you up. Because you hear it. When you hit a car, it's like a hollow pop. If you hit a cow, it's solid.
Wow, I'm speechless. And you didn't get yourself injured in any of these things yourself, did you?
No. I'm surrounded by steel, cast iron steel, and metal, and aluminum. And a train always wins. Always wins.
No competition, huh?
No, I mean, you know, you've got a train that's maybe a mile and a half long. It could be anywhere between 9,000 to 16,400 tons of operating equipment. Each one of those brand new engines are 4,300 horses. You get about 3 or 4 of them together and you pull back on that throttle. It's a good day.
You ever go to the yards where the trains are nowadays and look longingly at what your friends were for so many years?
I haven't been. I took a train trip around the United States last year. I took Amtrak out of here, went to Spokane, and then over to Chicago on the Empire Builder route. Stayed in Chicago for 2 days, and then took the old Santa Fe Chief, Route 66, down to L.A.
Did that cost you any money, or was it because of your retirement?
No, it cost me some money, but I have a discount. I get 25% off. You know, and it was fun. I mean, I got it out of my system. I mean, would I like to be out there? Occasionally I dream about it. Do I want to be out there in the middle of February? No. I have a 63-year-old body now. I don't have a 23-year-old body. There is a difference, you know. But those people worked long, hard hours. They're very dedicated in what they do. You know, when I hired out, the rule book was in the back of your pocket. You use a little paperback. Now it's a big binder. I mean, it's rules compliance.
You know, people don't know what feather bedding means. Remember feather bedding?
Yeah, you had a few people that would show up for work and didn't work.
Is that what's called feather bedding? What does that mean?
Well, as technology went along, you eliminated a lot of jobs you didn't need. When I hired out on the railroad, you had an engineer and a head brakeman on the head end, and then you had a caboose, you had a conductor and a rear brakeman. And in the old days, they used to have a flagman and a fireman. You know, those goes back to the days of steam, and as the railroad evolved, those people were displaced. And so they still kept them.
Mm-hmm. Well, because of unions or what?
Unions, yes. They have job protection. I was a protected employee when I hired out, because when we merged with the Frisco in 1980, anybody working at the time of the merger was a protected employee. And I was a protected employee. I mean, as long as I did my job, and I was okay, and if I got furloughed or if they scabbed it out, they'd have to pay me to stay home. It's called a guarantee. They did that to a lot of clerks as they downsized. Because when I hired out in '79, we had 58,000 employees on the Burlington Northern. By the time we downsized, we merged with the Santa Fe 23 years ago, we're down to 28,000 employees.
That's a lot of people out of work.
Well, yeah, you have technology. You know, in the old days, you had steam engines, and you had to have a pipe fitter and a welder. The new equipment, it's not steam, it's diesel electric. You don't need those people anymore. And if the engine breaks down, you just shut it down and isolate it, and they take it back to LaGrange or wherever, and they rebuild it. You subcontracted all that work out.
You got a long memory and history of what that work was for.
Yeah, I mean, for me, going to work was a blast.
How did you get from this interest in trains to space travel and rockets and those kinds of things? What a transfer.
Well, you got to understand, I'm 63 years old. I was born in 1955, you know, and we started flying the Atlas in 1958, right?
That was our first one, huh?
Yeah, and then
when you mention Atlas, I get nervous all over again.
the big gas bag. Anyhow, and then we had Project Mercury, we had the astronauts, the original 7 astronauts, and unfortunately, John Glenn died almost 2 years ago. They're all gone, and we're down to only 4 moonwalkers now. We had 12 at one time, because we just lost.
You got a few left, huh?
We got, who do we have left? We've got Harrison Smith, he was a geologist. We got Dave Scott, Charlie Duke, and I can't think of the other one right now, but yes.
And you still wander around Cape Canaveral and Kennedy Space Center?
I was down there a couple years ago. Cape Canaveral's changed. You know, all ICBM, the places ICBM row is all gone, but they're rebuilding it. They've torn down the launch pad you played on in 36A and B, where the Atlas Centaurs went. That's where Bezos going to fly out of. And then what was Launch Complex 12 and 13? It was the Atlas Agena pads. That's landing site 1, where the Falcon 9s come back and land. Mm-hmm. And what was 17A and B, where the Delta IIs, they've torn that down and they're rebuilding it. So it's, you know, and they're going to be up to about 45 launches a year out at Cape Canaveral.
So it's still in operation, doing the same thing it did many, many years ago.
But a different generation, newer engines, more powerful.
Yeah.
And you know, they're using Launch Complex 39A. That's where he's flying, and he's using Launch Complex 40, which was a Titan 3 pad.
Is he going to be successful in his ventures?
Yes. He's way ahead of everybody else. He's a smart guy. he's a visionary. Uh-huh. You know, and he used his own money, just like Howard Hughes used his own money to build a Spruce Goose, which we learned a lot from, because it's the biggest monoplane ever built.
And got off the water as high as 30 feet or something?
Yeah, only flew once. But the engines that he built for the B-30, for the Spruce Goose, ended up being on the engines on the B-36 bomber. Mm-hmm. You know, the 6 turning and 4 burning.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a whole new generation. So it's great. And the new people who grew up with Star Trek and whatnot, they're or you know, Star Wars. They're all excited. I mean, and it's a lot of women, which is great, because, you know, back then it was pretty much a man's field. It wasn't until the late 60s that women started getting involved in mission control, flight engineers, and then when we started having mission specialists like Sally Ride, made a stamp of her. She was the first American woman to fly in space. Mm-hmm. You know, the first stuff was very primitive.
So in your retirement, you spend your time continuing learning about what's still going on nowadays, Elon Musk and those kinds of people.
Yeah.
And you're keeping up with trains and the rail systems.
Yeah, my mind it never stops. I mean, and if you stop, when you retire, there is a sense of uselessness. I had to figure out what I needed to do, and I love reading. I mean, when I retired, I studied the patent all through Germany, and I studied the Marines in the Pacific, then I studied the Korean War, which I never read about. It was a very brutal war there.
You weren't in Vietnam?
No.
How come?
Because I wasn't old enough.
That's right. Okay.
I was lucky. My best friend Dave Hall, we were talking about the other day. We were born at the right time. We were in between Vietnam, and we were too old for the other things. And, you know, Vietnam we should have never been there. I mean, the Vietnamese people, they're just really nice individuals, fun-loving, nurturing, caring. They had 100 years of the French impressionism, you know, because they went down there for the rubber. And they finally kicked the French out in '58, and we came in, you know, and it was all a farce. I haven't read the Pentagon Papers yet, but that's one of the things.
Ellsberg.
I want to read that next.
Yeah. What's changing gears on you again? What's going to happen with the situation with North Korea and Trump? Is there anything of value going to come out of this?
Not this one. This is
forth?
kind of like a dance. But unfortunately, Trump has 2 left feet and a very expensive pair of shoes, and he can't dance. He can't play chess. You know, he may be the tallest guy in the room, but after they start talking, he's got a little pea brain, narrow-minded focus. He wanders all over the place. He suffers from attention deficit. It's all about him. It's not about him. It's about the Korean people. And they know in North Korea that if they're going to pull themselves up by the bootstraps and get into the 21st century, like where everybody else, they have to change. And the reason why they have nuclear weapons, because remember during the Treaty of Versailles, the Japanese helped fight the Germans, mm-hmm. but when it was at the peace table, they never got any of the spoils. They were left out. It's one of the reasons why they attacked us in the Pacific. And we put an embargo on them because they were getting their oil from us. He knows that's why he pushed really hard on the missile development so he can have some bargaining chips. Because the United States likes to strangle somebody, because if you follow the history of the white race, we've colonized everything. Look what we did to the American Indians. Mm-hmm. You know, we colonized the Philippines for their rubber, and then we gave them their independence. It was never ours to take. You know, and there's a pendulum shift in the world. The white race is becoming a minority, and they're losing their grasp and control.
Well, they can regain control if they can have a nuclear conflagration of some kind.
Okay, everybody loses. Remember, you have the jet stream that comes up over the North Pole and it goes down into Central America, right? Mm-hmm. Weather patterns across the Pacific go west to east. If we have a nuclear exchange, that radiation goes up into the jet stream and will come down over Canada and the Midwest. We're going to radiate our own people. It may be two days later, but it's going to get here. And that radiation is going to come across the Pacific, and we're going to kill all those fish. I mean, a lot of people eat sushi.
Where do you get this information from, what you're just talking about in the last few moments or so? That's too far out, man.
Well, that's going to happen. Everybody loses. Everybody loses. You know, did you ever read Richard Rhodes' book, The Making of the Atomic Bomb? When we had the above-ground nuclear test until Kennedy stopped it, when we were doing the nuclear bombs in the Bikini Atoll, it shot radiation around the planet like 12 times. And then when we were doing the above-ground nuclear explosions in Nevada, we radiated the Midwest because the radiation went up, caught by the rain, came over to the Midwest, and dumped on, and it gets into the soil, the water, and the food that we eat, the air that we drink. Why do you think a lot of people in the United States my age are suffering from thyroid cancer?
Where do you gather this information such that it really sounds solid, and I believe you, but that's not available in the mainstream or the corporate media?
Well,
sources?
you know, education is freedom. And the more educated you are, the more you can make choices. You know, lack of education in some ways is ignorance. And they try to suppress the education. They want everybody ignorant to think that their way is the way to go. It's not. I mean, and now, thanks to the burning of coal, you know, fossil fuels, Roundup is one of the worst things you can put in soil. I know Donald Trump doesn't believe that, but just where we live in the Tualatin Valley, you know, it comes off, goes down where we live in Fannel Creek, it flows into Fannel Creek,
in Oregon,
goes into the Tualatin, goes into the Willamette River. You don't want to eat anything that comes out of the Willamette River. It's very toxic.
How much time do we have left? Not in the show, but
if we don't make it, we're already sliding into the abyss. Damage control was probably 10 years ago. I mean, the weather patterns are changing. Look, we got fires in Colorado right now, flooding. It's going to get progressively worse as the planet heats up. I figure if we don't make an about change now, 40 years. If it's all over in 40 years.
Oh, man.
We won't live to see it, but if you have grandchildren, they'll see it.
I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back in another species so I can be, because I want to see what you're talking about.
Oh, God, I want to move on. There's something else I want to do. I think Patton was the only person that came back. I mean, I think he was reincarnated. I firmly believe that after reading all the books about Patton.
Yeah.
You know.
I remember the movie. I've seen it 16 times, I think, yeah.
It's
true. This is where it happened.
Yeah.
The Carthaginians?
Oh, yeah, and the Romans.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
I'm going to watch that movie again.
Well, I got a couple books on Patton you might want to read.
Yeah. What is that book you bought here?
Well, this book is called Rocket Man. I don't know if you can see this. There.
Yeah.
This is about the crew of Apollo 8. NASA thinks it was the hardest decision they ever made. It was the first time the human species left the influence
Hold it still for a minute.
of the Earth's gravitational pull into another celestial body. And this rocket here is Apollo 8. It's 363 feet tall. Most powerful engines ever made, the F-1. You know. And also, you could use this rocket as a prop. It demonstrates because Trump's presidency is like a bell curve. He's at the top of the bell. You know, the rocket's kind of in its third year, his midterm elections coming up, and then his fourth year, he's down on defeat, baby.
He is going with his crazy thinking, if you can call it that, is going to keep surprising us.
Will he go peacefully after he's voted out of office? That's the key.
Look, I'm going to revisit the question I asked you a little while ago. Are we ever going to see his tax returns?
No.
How is he going to manage that?
He's going
to change the Supreme Court and alter the Constitution. He is ignoring the Constitution, and it's such a gradual thing. I mean, the ACLU, oh, never mind, I'm getting carried away here.
You know, his whole presidency is basically, he should have never won because of the Electoral College. We should have abolished that years ago, and it should be a popular vote. And his whole thing is a illusion, a lie. You know, and you keep telling the lie long enough, people buy it. I don't know what happened to people when they go to they all drink the Kool-Aid when they go see his rallies. It scares me. It reminds me of Hitler. No.
Yeah. So are we looking for a Reichstag event to happen in America, something like a Pearl Harbor event, to have this total world war again, so that hopefully in their minds that they can ascend to the pinnacle of leadership around the world? Of course, we got China to deal with, huh?
China's a new power. They're it. They've already pretty much, you know, China, they're kind of like, did you ever watch Star Trek The Next Generation? They had the Borg, you know, and when they took over, they assimilated you. China's pretty much assimilated a lot of things. And, you know, they helped build the Panama Canal. They're working on their One Belt, One Road, where they're going to build triple main line, go from China all the way to Europe, the old Silk Road, and they're going to bypass the United States. We're no longer the center of the universe anymore. Freight's going to go around us. It's a lot of trillions of dollars of revenue and jobs that we're going to lose.
You think this is going to come to pass?
Yes.
How soon?
Within the next 10 years.
Really?
Yes. They've already rebuilt the Panama Canal, so they don't have to come to the Port of Long Beach anymore, the Port of Tacoma. They can go right because they've extended and the canal, and they also deepened so they can get the bigger ships in. They're about 1,032 feet long, about the size of an aircraft carrier.
Are you learning Chinese?
Should use Mandarin. It's the new language. It'd be helpful.
Wow.
And there's nothing we can do. What are we going to do? Instead of taking a steamship around, the Horn and going up to Europe, they're going to move freight across the old Silk Road route in 10 days. Everybody's going to make money but us. Our country's all about making money.
America? Us?
Yes. Well, America's a business. A lot of people don't realize that. They run it like a business. We're the pawns.
I believe that something is going to happen. I'm not sure what it is. Before the end of his first term, I think at the end of this midterm, shortly after that, things will be so radically different, Joe. This is when the revolution will occur.
I hope so. I mean, we need a change. I mean, and he needs a home run. If he doesn't get this with Korea, where's it going to go? He promised that he was going to be the great negotiator. All of a sudden, all he's done is screw middle class over. And they buy it. I just can't imagine. Do we all get dumb? Do we all remember Reagan? Reagan tripled the national debt in one term. We went to a severe recession in '83. We're sliding into a recession right now, and people don't even know it.
When are you going to wake up the homeless?
I think we're all going to become the homeless here soon. We're all being left behind.
So when is the revolution going to occur? How is it going to happen in America?
Well, I think the minorities and the women are going to lead the charge. I hate to say minorities. The white people are becoming the minority in this country, and they're losing control. I mean, you go down to Orange County, the people that came over from Vietnam and Cambodia, they worked really hard. They had children. Their children went to college. They bought houses. They bought businesses. White people are becoming a minority. Same way the Latino people came across this country. They worked hard. They get their kids through school. Their kids don't drop out. They go to school. They learn. They get businesses. Everything's changing. White, fat, and dumb is on the way out, along with ignorance.
I see. I'm not sure which paradigm to follow. The racial situation, the white versus non-white versus the social justice things, like whether it's going to be some kind of a socialism or some sophisticated form of capitalism or some new ism. What's going to drive us? Religion, a primary driving force that has us as a species on this planet. What's going to be the most important consideration?
Survival. I mean, eventually people are going to realize that the environment, the weather, is going to be the enemy because of all the toxicity we put in it. Just like the jet stream doesn't flow like it used to. Look at all the violent storms we're having.
Yeah.
And it's going to get worse. The planet's heating up. Last year was the hottest year Oregon ever had. We already got a drought already in eastern Oregon. And look at the snowpacks melting this early. I mean, when I took a walk today when I left the gym, you go walk down where the fence is as you're heading towards new seasons.
Yeah.
You can already see blackberries, already green.
Climate is changing radically.
It is. It's speeding up, and then she's getting ready to get rid of us. That's what's happening.
Okay, time is running out, so we're going to need to wind down. And we need a lot more time because you're wearing me out.
All right.
You're brilliant. So now look at the camera and tell the viewers what you want to say to them about anything at all. That's the one with the red light on it.
Oh, resistance is futile.
You find that funny?
It's just amazing. As you grow older, you get a little bit of wisdom. You do your career, and I'm really enjoying watching Donald Trump prematurely age and decompose at the same time. I mean, there's a 9-year-old little spoiled brat in that body that needs all the attention, and he's not getting it. And where's it going to go?
You're really scary and brilliant.
You know, and
It's-
the investigation keeps closing in, closing in. Did you watch him when he was in Canada? His eyes were going all over the place.
We're going to save this and rebroadcast it again in the future because you're forecasting and you're, what's the word, a seer or prognosticator or somebody who's looking way ahead. It's kind of scary.
You know, the Trump administration's like a big tragedy. Are we still on?
Yeah.
And you're going to watch it slowly but surely sink because he's lost forward momentum and he's taken on water.
Thanks for coming aboard.
Thank you.
And you're just so brilliant and so enjoyable. It's time for us to say good night and to watch my shows on the web, Google Don Baham YouTube, to see my previous shows. And another public service announcement to learn more about humanists and humanism, because I'm a humanist, a recovering Catholic. The American Humanist Association has an answer. You know what that's about, huh?
Oh,
and to learn more
recovering
about the
Catholic.
Alliance for Democracy, that's another organization I belong to. That's a left wing. And there's where you can get in touch with them to learn what they're about. And to learn more about the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU. Thank goodness for the ACLU. Go to that website and learn about the American Civil Liberties Union, because our civil liberties are in the tubes and going away fast. And we got to end corporate personhood to save this country. We got to move to amend so that we can amend the Constitution that says that corporations are not people and money is not speech, so that our voices can be heard. And thanks for watching. We got carried away here. Remember KFC, and that Kentucky Fried Chicken. Dr. Don's KFC, kind, friendly, and charitable. Despite what my guest is saying, we're going to survive. Thank you, and good night. See you next time.